Hello ladies and gents, another beautiful morning here in sunny Retford. It's not sunny, it's overcast, but it's still red hot, which is nice. Quick update on the old Capri gear. She's up on the ramp. Ta-da! I've been making a few changes here. Obviously I'm going back to a Rover V8, so I have cut out the motor mounts for the Chevy. Okay, those have now gone, the bulkhead mounts and the motor plate. I will be ordering a new motor plate. I've removed the cross member from here. I've left those pieces in because I will probably just extend them down to whatever I do with the cross member. I have removed the cross member completely from there. I've still got a nub to grind off there, but unfortunately I'm an idiot, so I've run out of flat wheels, sanding discs, whatever you want to call them. Okay. I've also noticed a few odds and sods that I want to readdress under here. As I said to you before, some of this was built long before. And I'm a bit better at doing things these days. And when I say a bit, I mean about 1,000,000 times. I found an old adapter plate for the Capri gearbox, and I have purchased, I think I mentioned it before, I may not have done, an automatic bell housing from a Rover. That's from a Range Rover V8. You use the adapter plate on that. Since buying those, I've found, I think, the correct adapter plate and bell housing that I've bought on eBay, which should negate all that and a lot of lathe time and another piece of aluminium, hopefully. Back over here under the car, I have altered my ladder bars. Okay, so I've never been happy with the position of the engine in relation to the pinion angle. Pinion angle is absolutely critical. A friend of mine who races a pop, the pinion angle was slightly off on that when it was a fresh build. It's obviously fine now, but it kept breaking gearbox housings. It is imperative that that angle on the pinion is identical to that on the gearbox. So the pinion here is now 2 degrees nose up, which means the pinion is a little bit like that, around 2 degrees. I've done that with the spirit level against the body of the car. It's an estimation or a guesstimation, if you like, for 2 degrees. There's a line on the spirit level that I will use when I set up the engine and gearbox. The gearbox will then, the output shaft of the gearbox will be 2 degrees down. So that will be the same angle, so both sides lay in parallel to one another. The angle then on the prop shaft from the back of the gearbox, which will exit somewhere around here, having measured it up, needs to be down about 4 degrees. That's important because otherwise your UJs and Hardy Spicers, etc., they don't rotate, and you need those little needle rollers in there to rotate and run the grease around them, otherwise they wear in one spot and it leads to premature wear. I've read that on the internet, and I spoke to the prop shaft man this week when I got the prop shaft done for the little red Alpha, and he said I was absolutely right with what I've read there. It sounded correct when I read it, but I just wanted to check with him because he's a prop shaft expert. So I've tipped that up by extending these, reducing the length of these here. All right, screwed those in to one full turn, and to compensate for how much that will have rolled the axle in, which is very minimal because obviously it rotates around this fulcrum here, I've extended the rose joints that you can see in here out a little to centre the wheels back in the arches. As long as everything's square and parallel, they don't have to be absolutely central to the arches. When I put the arches on, they were absolutely central, even side to side, but you can't see both sides at once, so don't worry about it too much. The diagonal track locator I've extended a little bit just to fill the gap. It shouldn't technically need that with ladder bars, however, that's just a fail-safe really for me. This is a left-hand and a right-hand joint, so I can shorten it and extend it just by twisting it in one direction. Okay. So now she's back down on the floor. You can see where the opening is there. I'm going to buy some more aluminium and make my own motor plate for the Rover bell housing. I don't know, actually, truth be told, I don't know if I'm going to stick with motor plates or if there's any advantage in using that over just solid engine mountings welded to the chassis rails. If anybody wants to enlighten me on that, obviously if this was just a unibody car, just a monocoque chassis, then I would just put solid mounts in, but it isn't. So I've left the front motor mounts in for the front motor plate. They may or may not be in the right place for the Rover. I will have to angle them slightly if I'm tipping the engine back a little bit, but it may just be a matter of cutting them and twisting them and welding them back in. I don't know as yet, and I don't want to do any work that isn't strictly necessary at this point. I think the chances are I'll probably just take them out and clean them up once I've got some grinding discs back. I've started scraping the paint off the tops of the chassis rails. I've cleaned some out of there. If I coast you back around over here, I can show you that I've added an extra diagonal into the steering column support. I put one in here when I first built it with about 16 ton of orange paint on it, and I was never really happy it was solid enough, and I'd rather, to be honest, put extra weight in and make it more solid. It can't be too solid, the steering wheel. You don't want that moving around. It is now really solid. It is part of the car well and truly, and it's tied into this corner here, into the corner of the roll cage. I've also painted the pedal box, and I've modified the pedal box. Can't remember if I showed you this or not, but I'll show you it again, even if I did. So I've welded a flat plate on the top. I've rolled a section on the back that adds incredible amounts of strength, that bend on the back there. I've gusseted it in the front there as well, on all 3 points where I could. And you'll notice I've stitch welded it inside so that you can still get to put the cylinders in there without struggling. I didn't want to have to grind any off the cylinders, and you can't get in there to grind back if you need to, so I've left those unwelded on that side. It's stitched under there, and it's welded on the back there. That's made it significantly stronger. The captive nuts I've welded underneath, they're stainless steel M6, and they will locate the floor, which is going to be a sort of subfloor that will go above the cylinders so you don't get your feet caught in the brake pipes, and basically so you've somewhere to rest your heels. Okay, a little bit of primer on there where I did that. Haven't done that yet on the bulkhead where I put the accelerator pedal, but I'll be doing that soon. Okay, so that's where we're up to at the moment. I've polished some of the back, looks quite nice now. It's covered in a layer of dust. Unfortunately, I left it out yesterday, and I was talking to a customer on the phone, and I didn't realise it had started raining until it got quite heavy. As you can see, there's still a tiny bit of orange peeling, so I may cut it some more. But the shine is there, and it looks quite nice. You can see my reflection in it beautifully. Okie dokie. Right, I'll leave it there. Hopefully the next video will be when I start to spear the engine and gearbox in there and get it set up. It might be a week or two, it might be next week. Hopefully the bell housing will turn up today. But as you can see, the TR6 is now out, and I want that done for the customer by the end of the month. The parts should be arriving subsequently just to finish off the hardtop. The hardtop is now mounted on it. And that should be away hopefully by the end of the month and back to him. There's not a lot to do. I just need to reconnect the column because the ignition key decided to lock up solid in the column. Thankfully, it did it here. It worked absolutely perfectly all the time it's been in here, and then all of a sudden it stuck with the starter running at full speed, and I had to, luckily it didn't start, and I had to disconnect the battery. I was just testing, just turning it over to check the position of the metering unit. Okie dokie, to be continued.